welcome to the Los Sendas Orchestra 4th grade parent informational meeting via video. This is the first time we're trying this. So this is just going to be a short video that's going to give you the information you need to get your child started in orchestra this year. So let's jump right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is instruments. This year in orchestra, your child can continue with the violin if they've been doing that in Suzuki in 2nd and 3rd grade, or there's actually 3 new instruments they can try this year. The first one is the viola. It looks a lot like the violin, and it's still pretty small. It does eventually get bigger than the violin. The second one is the cello. They start to get bigger here. I say this one's about the size of a little kindergartner, and they sit down to play this one. And last but not least is the bass, which I can't even fit completely in the camera, but I usually say it's about the size of a very tall 6th grader. So this is the big, what we call the big daddy of the orchestra. Next thing we're going to talk about is startup lessons. Startup lessons this year are after school lessons that I've designed to bridge the gap between the students who stick with violin and already know what they're doing and the students who would be new to their instruments, which would be viola, cello, and bass. There's only 2 lessons after school for the entire year, and they happen the first couple weeks of school. Again, these lessons are designed to help bridge the gap and get your students started on their new position, new strings, and new bow hold of their new instrument. Again, these lessons only happen twice, so let me explain to you how those work.
Your child only needs to come to 2 lessons, and it is based on their classroom teacher and the instrument that they play. The schedule will be posted here on the screen, and I will be sending home a packet with this information as well next week. So just check the slides and make sure that you get the right time for your student to come.
For some reason your child cannot make it on a Tuesday and a Thursday works better for them, but they're not in the class that's assigned that day, please feel free to send them that day. It's more important to me that they attend one of the after-school practices because they're really important than it is that they are on the exact right day. The only reason I've broken them down is because we literally get so many students in here, it makes the instruction much more difficult, so we're just trying to break the numbers down to make them smaller. Again, all the information I just said will be sent home in a packet, and I'm going to also try to get it up on my website, on the Los Sendas website under orchestra. And just as a reminder, if your student is wanting to continue with the violin, that they won't need to come after school, so that's a little bit of a benefit if you play the violin. And also I tell my students, if you're a really busy student and you don't have any time after school, even for those 2 lessons, then violin is your best bet. Okay, let's move on to talking about renting. The biggest change this year from orchestra to Suzuki is that your child is going to have to rent an instrument, all of them except the bass, which I'll talk about in a minute. So if your child plays violin, viola, or cello, they will need to rent an instrument this year from a store. So let's talk about first what you need to rent. You will get an instrument that will have a case, a bow, and a rosin, and that rosin looks like this. They can be dark or light, and they should come in there for free if you are a cello, viola, violin. The bass rosin I'll show you in just a second is a little bit different, and you do have to buy that one separately because it's more specialized. Also, if your child's playing violin or viola, they're going to need what's called a shoulder rest. This right here is the really nice shoulder rest. The thing is, these things are kind of expensive and your student may grow in and out of them. If you want to spend the money, they're very nice, but you don't have to. These are a little bit nicer. What I usually recommend when your student's starting, especially in 4th grade, because they're going to grow, are these little sponges right here. They're usually $3 to $6, and they'll kind of hold your student over until they get older, and maybe their violin size is not growing and you don't have to keep buying more than one. So these are the ones I recommend, but they will definitely need one of those. The last thing they're going to need is a stand for home or just somewhere they can hang up their music. If they don't have a stand at home for their music, then what happens is when they're playing, for example, violin, if they have their music on the bed, they're going to compromise their position to look down. If they're a cello, they have to sit. It's going to be extremely hard for them to see anything that's laying on a bed. So I always recommend stand. You don't need a super nice one like we have at school, the black ones. They have some foldable ones, or if you have a piano at home, you can just use that, or anything else that would function as a stand. Okay, so let's talk about renting. Again, everybody needs to rent this year except for the basses, and I'll talk about that in a second. Here's my tips for renting. First of all, I highly recommend that you rent. You can purchase an instrument, which I'll talk about in a minute, but here's the benefit of renting. Your child's going to grow, and the instruments grow with them. So for example, if your child is needing a half-size violin this year, they grow, maybe even in the middle of the year, and they need a larger size violin. If they are renting, you simply take that instrument into the store and they will give them a larger instrument. If you buy one, you have to buy a half-size violin. Then if they moved up another size, you'd have to buy the next size up. So you'd have to purchase several violins as they grow. So that's why I recommend renting. Here's my tips for renting. The first is shop around. We actually have a couple good options, bigger stores around here that you can rent from. So don't just go to the first one, maybe call around and get some pricing. The second thing is to ask your vendor questions. I will send home this, also in a packet, is a Mesa Public Schools handout that gives you some brands that they recommend that are tried and true brands that you know will be good for your student. Also make sure that you purchase the insurance for the instruments. This is really, really nice. They're usually just a couple extra dollars on top of your rental, is to get insurance. That way if an accident happens and something gets broken, which has happened a lot more than I would like in my classroom, they will fix your instrument for free based on that insurance. Whereas if you don't have that, the replacement of an instrument or any kind of instrument work usually is extremely expensive. So I recommend you find a place that has insurance. Another really important thing is take your child with you to the store when you rent. They need to size the instrument to fit them. This is based on height, arm length, body build. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. So if you try to go to the store and just tell them, my child's a 4th grader who's kind of, medium height, they're not going to be able to help you get the accurate size of instrument. So you need to take your child with you, and they will literally size their arm, have them try different cellos, different instruments to make sure that they have the right size. Also, you want to find a place, and most places do this, where you have your rent goes towards the purchase of an instrument. I have quite a few students who rented their instruments from 4th, 5th, and 6th, and by the end, with the little bit of money they kind of add to a purchase, they give you kind of like a fund they hold on to. They have been able to purchase an instrument once they're full size by about 6th or 7th grade, just by part of their rent going towards the purchase of an instrument. So that's a really good deal. You want to look into that too. As much as I'd love to tell you my favorite music stores, the district asked me not to do that, so I can't tell you where to rent, but I can tell you that we have an amazing community of parents. I've had a lot of students go through this program, so if you just ask around your neighborhood, ask a neighbor, maybe somebody you know who's already had a student in orchestra, then they can tell you where they've rented, and there are a couple places close by. Okay, let's talk about purchasing instruments. This rarely goes really well for my parents. If an instrument is anything below, in my opinion, $150, it's probably not going to be worth anything. I've had a lot of parents tell me they found a violin for $60, and they did find one for $60, but when it comes in, they just don't work. They don't stay in tune, the bridges aren't good, the strings break, and basically the student just ends up feeling not successful in the classroom because their instrument is not of a good quality. So if you really want to purchase an instrument, please, please, please let me help you. What you can do is, I'm going to include at the end of this video, is my email. You can email me the links of where you're looking, descriptions, anything you need, and I will email you back and give you my semi-professional opinion on instruments and what I think, if they're worth the money, if they're good quality. Obviously I can't say for sure, but I'll give you the best direction I can in that area. So please make sure you reach out to me before you purchase an instrument, and please, please, please don't buy an instrument that is colored. I've had a lot of black violins, purple, pink, you name it, and they're usually not very good instruments. Actually, I've never had one be really good. So as cool as a purple violin seems, they don't really do well in the orchestra classroom, and they're kind of, again, they help the child not to feel successful because they don't sound very good on them. Just a reminder about renting, that you'll need to have this rented for your child by those first after school lessons, August 23rd. So you got about a week and a half to get out there, take your student out there and rent your instruments. Okay, let's talk about basses. We usually have quite a few students here who want to play basses. As you can see, the basses are very large, so even if you were to rent one, which I'll talk about in a second, you wouldn't want to be transporting that thing back and forth. I mean, it's literally the size of a 6th grader. It's giant. So they're also extremely expensive to rent. They can be anywhere from, if you're lucky, $60 a month. Most of them are about $100 a month to rent. So I don't recommend that parents do that. I can provide only 7 basses for the entire 4th grade for in-class use and for the concert. So if your child wants to play the bass, hopefully when you signed your child up for orchestra, when I sent home that little half sheet of paper, it said if your child wants to play the bass, please include your email. If you didn't do that, please email me. That will be at the end of the video again, and let me know that your child wants to play the bass, and so I have your email. What I do is I take everybody who wants to play the bass, if there's more than 7, and I take those names. I use our district policy to go see who qualifies for those basses from the school and who doesn't. If your child does qualify, then they have that bass for the whole year, rent-free for the concerts, for practice and all that stuff. If your child doesn't qualify for the bass, based on that district policy, then I have 2 recommendations. One is you can call me. I can give you a couple of tips for finding bass rentals. It's a little bit different than normal rentals. Or your child can switch to a different instrument. They can stick with the violin, or they can go to the cello, which I recommend is the most similar to the bass. Also, I have had a couple students who didn't get a bass in 4th grade. They switched to the cello, and then when they got to 5th grade, there was a few more bass openings, and those students actually started on the bass in 5th grade and thrived and did well. So basically saying a no this year doesn't mean a no forever. If I could have everybody play the bass, or as many people as wanted to, I would, because that's my main instrument. Okay, so let's talk about new students, because I'm sure if you are new to Las Sendas, some of this sounds pretty foreign to you. If you are new to Las Sendas, and this would be your child's first year ever playing, a couple of things. First of all, I would recommend they play viola, cello, or bass, and that's due to those extra after-school practices, and also due to the fact that everybody else will be new to those instruments, so it'll be a little bit easier transition. Also, I would love to have you email me and let me know that your child is new. You can just email me. Again, I said it'll be at the end of the video, and just say this is my child's name, the class they're in, and they are new. And what I will do in addition to everything else I just said is set up a couple extra lessons with me, and I also have an assistant teacher who helps me get those new students started. And also I want to make sure I'm in contact with you to make sure your child is thriving and doing really well in orchestra. Okay, let's talk about the concerts. So this year a little bit different. We have 2 concerts this year, and they're really, really awesome. It's all the 4th grade classes perform together, so it's usually over 100 students, and it's really, really impressive. We have 2 concerts. One is in December, and the other one is in May. Of course, we want the students to be participating in both of these, so I try to let you know as soon as I can the dates of the concert so that you can get them in your calendar. I know everybody's very busy. Also, this year for orchestra, we have a little quote-unquote uniform outfit. Your child can wear this orchestra t-shirt, which they will be getting some forms home to purchase these in the next couple weeks, or they can wear a black t-shirt and jeans for the concert. One more thing about the concert is I want to go back to renting. This is one of the reasons we rent instruments. First of all, I didn't say earlier, I actually don't have a lot of instruments in my room. I do have a few basses, and that's pretty much it. Maybe a viola and a couple cellos in here. So I don't have the kind of instrument Suzuki has to provide, so that's one of the reasons we rent them. But the other reason is because when we perform at that concert, I told you we all perform together. Everybody has to have their own instrument. So it's extremely important that you rent now, but also that you make sure you keep renting throughout the year, because otherwise your student won't have an instrument for the concert. All right, last but not least, let's talk about the orchestra schedule for the regular school day. So once all the students get started with their after-school lessons, we're just going to go into our normal pattern of having orchestra twice a week for 30 minutes, and those students will come based on their classroom teacher. That's how their schedule will be pulled. They will leave with everybody else in their classroom, come over here, have orchestra for 30 minutes twice a week, and go back. Now, a little bit different this year, going back to the rentals again, is they're going to need to transport their instrument on their orchestra day. So there is a little bit of leeway for them to leave instruments on a couple days, but for the most part, they bring them on their orchestra days, they take them home, they practice, they bring them on their next orchestra day. I will put the schedule up again online on the Las Sendas Orchestra page, so you can look at it so you know what day your child has orchestra, and you can help them remember their instrument. And also, if they forget their instrument, you can feel free, if you were able, to bring it up and drop it off at the office. While the office won't call your student to tell them it's in there, if your student forgets their instrument, I always ask them to go to the office and check first to make sure that their instrument is not up there. That way they will have something to participate in orchestra that day. If you could help remind them of those days, especially in the beginning when they're getting in the swing of things, that would be amazing. So that concludes our video. Hopefully you found it informative and short. And then also at the very end of the video, I'm going to have a slide with my email, the days I'm at Las Sendas, and my phone number. Please feel free to call me to answer any further questions. And most of the stuff I also told you will be sent home in paper form within the next couple of days. Thank you so much.